Day I Was Erased, Chapter 2, Flamingo. The pink flamingo on Mrs Banks's lawn was looking at me funny. Its black staring eye didn't move as I crouched down in the corner of the garden. I walked past Mrs Banks's house every day on the way to and from school, and the tall plastic flamingo had appeared beside her pond about a month ago. Mrs Banks was in her garden most days, admiring it or moving it into a slightly different position. I wouldn't be surprised if she actually talked to it. Well, that stupid bird was going to get it. A prickly bush beside me began to shake, and a wet nose emerged from the undergrowth and sniffed the air. "Monster! How did you get out again? Keep down, she'll skin you alive if she gets hold of you. You do know that, don't you?" Monster head-butted me on my side and I rubbed his neck. His bottom wiggled madly as his tail propelled round and round. I stared back at the flamingo and held onto the half piece of brick I'd found in our back garden. "Who would buy something so ugly, eh, Monster? That flamingo is the most disgusting thing I've ever seen." He licked the back of my hand and I wiped the stringy, sticky goo onto my school trousers. "In fact, the whole garden is hideous," I said. "Look at it." There were stepping stones from the front gate to the door, and so there was no risk that any visitor would walk on her precious grass. Not that I'd ever known her to have visitors. No one called at Mrs Banks's house for a cup of tea or to see how she was doing. However, plenty of people stopped as they walked by to gawp at the garden. Not because it was beautiful or full of tropical plants or anything, but because it was so cheesy. Dotted amongst the bright-coloured flowers were a family of concrete squirrels wearing top hats, 7 pixies in various gymnastic poses, an old man with a big fat tummy pushing a tiny wheelbarrow, and a plastic wishing well. The pink flamingo was her latest purchase, and only this morning I'd watched her wipe some invisible dirt off it as I'd walked to school. It was clearly her new favourite thing. I held tightly onto the brick and looked at the windows of Mrs Banks's bungalow. She had blinds at her windows like the ones you get in offices, the vertical kind, in a horrible dirty green colour. They were all closed. "Right, are you ready for this?" I said. Monster did a deep sigh next to me, then began to lick his bum. He always does that when he gets bored.